Dollar Bill, we are good. You're gonna be like our boots on the ground kind of guy. Bill, you ready? I'm gonna go right in your backyard with the Buckeyes. Believable or not, that Keinholz will start over Julian Sand.
I'm not there yet, but there is whispers
You
that it
hear
could
that,
be a
right?
competition. I'm hearing there's
Yeah.
I think sometimes coaches say it's a competition as lip service, and we know that they're full of it. You know what I mean? And then there's times when they say there's a competition and there's a competition. And I feel like there is at minimum they're not ready to name a starter yet. I think it will be a competition. I would still guess saying, but whether it's Lincoln Keenholz or even, at what point,
Yeah. You got a
when the
freshman phenom.
Tavian St. Clair, and they like him a lot too. So, whoever it is, going to have a lot of pressure on them in that week 1 game against Texas.
Bill, I do wonder, obviously they chose to have this three-way quarterback battle rather than, bring in a transfer like they did with Will Howard. How much of that was they really genuinely liked the guys they got in the room versus they didn't want to, I guess, run off some of the high-profile younger guys, whether it's Sand or St. Clair? Like, what do you think went into the process of deciding, hey, this is the direction we want to go with just 3 total unknowns?
They've done this before at Ohio State. I remember I always point to the year where it was the late Dwayne Haskins, Joe Burrow, and Tate Martell. And had you pulled Ohio State fans at the time, they probably would have taken Tate Martell. And Dwayne ends up throwing for 50 touchdowns that year. So they're not – I think some of it is they did get Julian from Alabama. He's 5-star. Lincoln Keenholz has played a little bit. And then Tavian St. Clair, obviously another 5-star quarterback. So it does increase the interest. I don't think Ryan Day's the type of guy that wants to go portal every year. And that's at Ohio State, you shouldn't have to go portal every year. You should be able to develop your own.
Speaking of developing their own at Ohio State, before we get into anybody else here, I do look at this roster and go, okay, obviously they recruit at a super high level every year. And so we kind of give them the benefit of the doubt because of their history and because of their talent. Is there any part of you that looks at it and goes, hey, is there any concern, I guess, that maybe some of these guys aren't ready to just step in and continue the level we saw from Ohio State last year?
Well, I mean, when you lose that many NFL guys, some of the level of play
just
is
natural.
Right, yeah.
I mean, you can't – well, I remember LSU when they had 15 guys drafted. You're going to see a step back no matter where it is. But, I mean, when you can build an offense around Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, and, they picked up C.J. Donaldson from West Virginia. He's a really good running back. Defensively, you're building around Caleb Downs in a new scheme with Matt Patricia. I heard them talking about Kenyatta Jackson yesterday. That's another one of those. Yeah. Remember how Alabama always had a guy where it would be like, oh, Quinnen Williams hasn't played much, but all of a sudden he's a top 5 pick. Kenyatta Jackson could be one of those guys.
Well, let me ask you something. Of teams that we think we feel good about but need a couple of things to go their way, what do you like between Alabama and Miami as kind of a difference if they want to have the season that their fan base thinks they're capable of having?
Oh, I think Alabama could win it all. I don't know if they will. They have the talent to do it. Ooh. They're not that far removed from Nick Saban. Could, as in need those things to break their way, need to play better on the road. Hoping that Ryan Grubb is a difference maker as the offensive coordinator. Ty Simpson, or they have a quarter.
They got a young. I mean, I'm surprised you. That's pretty gutsy. Now I get it, right? You got Ryan Williams, and that defense has 3 first-rounders. But man, that's
there's a lot of teams in the SEC breaking in new quarterbacks, though.
That's gutsy.
So I'll justify it this way. So stop me when you don't think this team can win a national title this year.
Okay.
And I think there's 7.
Okay.
I will go Ohio State, Texas, Georgia, Penn State, Clemson, Notre Dame, Alabama, and I think I'm done at that point. Like, I think the national title will come from one of those 7 schools this year. Maybe we can talk ourselves into like an LSU if you want.
Let me add, so I'll give you 2 are they better than? And I'm not saying that they can win. If you had to pick today, who would you take between Bama and Ole Miss?
Probably Alabama, because Ole Miss has to start a new quarterback. They have talent on defense, though. They have 3 top 50 guys on that defense. And Lane's got it rolling a little bit. But I just trust Alabama. I trust I'll talk about the quarterback situation. Very similar to Ohio State.
Okay.
You know, that Ty Simpson, probably the guy, but the endorsement isn't like super strong.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give you another one in the conference, because I think defensively they'll be outstanding. Arguably one of the best front fours in the country, but they don't come up a ton. If they played tomorrow, Alabama or Oklahoma?
I think Oklahoma will know. I'm going to reserve everything till week 2. I do like Oklahoma's sleeper appeal. I love that John Mateer's there. For those that haven't seen him play, great dual threat quarterback. They added Jaden Ott. Their defense should be good with Brent Venables.
Hey, that front four is a menace.
They are. And even though they lose Stutzman, they're going to be pretty good on that side of the ball. And game in week 2 will be the truth teller.
So I didn't even use LSU, Bill, and I'm thinking there's 3 teams right there in the SEC where, you know, Bama kind of gets the contingency, but they get the national title talk. So I just wanted to hear the compare and contrast of compared to some other teams, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. And I, you know, like I said, with Alabama, it's just a kind of trust it. You know, it's almost, I've always used that phrase, default setting. Well, they're really good talent-wise. But 3 through 10 in the SEC, which we have Alabama 3rd through, I guess, like an Auburn or an Oklahoma, who would be the 9th or 10th team ranked, they all have questions. Tennessee has questions. LSU has questions. I thought when you started talking a minute ago that you were going to say South Carolina with their front 4.
Yeah, they're definitely in the discussion.
Because Lenora Sellers is awesome. So, I mean, they're going to be an interesting team in that mix. And then Dylan Stewart on the other side of the ball is a top 5 pick at defensive end.
Bill, let me did you mention Oregon in there in your in your 7?
No, I didn't. I probably should have. They would be the next one.
Okay.
I'm probably dismissing them more than I should this year.
I'm kind of with you, though. Not that I matter, but I have concerns.
So Oregon less than Bama in your mind this year?
Probably by a touch. Just because I think, well, I mean, that's assuming I'm wrong. If I'm wrong about something, it's Dante Moore could step in, be awesome. They're offense.
Arguably missing his best wide receiver.
Right. And Mekhi Hughes could be good. They've got enough back on defense that they should be very successful. Dan Lanning's super good coach, you know, super aggressive. Whatever your feelings are on him, man, look at that 3-year winning percentage. It's really good.
Yeah, you like Lanning in game?
Oh, man, you're asking me the wrong. I have a reputation around the office as like the 4th down, go for it guy hater. And it got heated around the Dan Campbell stuff a few years ago. But I am a Packers fan, so the biases are there. You know who punts the least in the NFL, and it's proven, Belichick and Reed.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll just go with them.
No, I think that's fair.
Interesting.
So I guess here's kind of the part, because Bill, DB, and I have done this all off season where we look at how wide open, whether it's the SEC or the Big Ten, and going through these conferences and looking at their quarterbacks. And so when we pit Alabama versus Oregon against each other, I'm trying to figure out, and I'm not a big Dante Moore guy, but I'm trying to figure out, I feel like I know a little more about Dante Moore than Ty Simpson at this point, even though that was a school and 2 years ago. And if you just boil it down to quarterback, say everything else is equal, you taking Dante Moore or Ty Simpson?
Mm.
You guys are bringing it this morning. Can we go back to the fourth down discussion?
That's a good one.
But Dante Moore, because I think he'll fit, and I just trust Lanning with Bo Nix, Gabriel, and we were like,
those guys were geriatrics.
I'll say they were pretty good when they got there.
He's made it work with those guys, and I think he'll make it work with whoever the next quarterback is. So I just think Dan Lanning. Now Ty Simpson, again, he's got some guys behind him, Austin Mack, Keelan Russell, and they like them too. And that's part of the reason I answered that way is, if Ty Simpson struggles, I could see Alabama turn into somebody else because of the urgency around the season.
Huh. Bill, let me ask you. So is this one of those years? A lot of times you guys do the preseason top 25s and you do your homework. Where would you put this year relative to others in unknowns because of the new quarterbacks around college football? It on the surface, it seems a lot more wide open where you could say, I like Notre Dame if. I like Alabama if. I like Michigan if. Like, who's Gunnar Stockton? I like Georgia if, right? There, it just seems like there are more questions at quarterback than there have been in quite some time.
And there's more questions at quarterback from the top. You look at the top, all those so-called national title
contenders. Oregon and Ohio State right
reeled off. Two of them have a returning starter.
Clemson and Penn State.
People love to criticize Cade Klubnik and Drew Aller too. So, and those are 3-year starters. So think about all of those other schools. You just said it. Notre Dame, yeah, it's great if CJ Carr's the guy. Michigan, they could go back to the playoff if Bryce Underwood is who we think he's going to be. Texas with Arch, we haven't talked. How did we get this far without talking about Arch? I mean, I feel like it's obligated to talk about him.
I've been on a soapbox about Arch kind of all off season because I'm sitting here and I know he's supposed to be good. I know we give him the benefit of the doubt because Texas has all the talent and Steve Sarkisian's good at the offensive play calling and everything like that. But we know, we've seen little flashes, but the guy's thrown 90 total passes in college. We know,
I'm just the opposite. I think Texas hammers Ohio State in the opener.
And listen, he might end up being awesome, right? But we know next to nothing about Arch Manning as a college quarterback.
Agree. What makes it so interesting is both of those scenarios are plausible to me. Like Texas could open some eyes, and he has a great.
I just think they're just really good up front, and Ohio State's. That offensive line last year was underappreciated, and they mauled people. They're going to have their hands full with this front from Texas.
Well, and then so let's run that through. Let's say they do to Ohio State what they did to Michigan last year on the road. Remember they went up to Ann Arbor and housed them?
Yep.
And it's similar to that. The reaction the following day will be Arch Manning, number 1 pick. Here's a list of NFL teams tanking their season. The Heisman is his. All of those things, I will probably contribute to that madness. But I think that's something to keep in mind. And then the other side of it is, let's say he goes there 265 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They lose late. What is our story then? I think you've got to understand from my standpoint, I said, the short list of quarterbacks I've seen walk into Ohio Stadium and win outside the Big Ten, really outside the last decade, and 2 that stand out. Anthony Brown did it with Oregon. Remember that game?
Oh, yeah.
Ohio State bad. And then if Arch does what Baker did, Baker's the one that always stands out. He took Oklahoma in there, and they ripped through a really good Ohio State team. If we get that, I'll probably spend a day writing about Arch Manning.
Listen, I love Baker. I think we grossly undervalue that season historically. Baker Mayfield was an incredible college quarterback.
I mean, he's one of the best college quarterbacks of all time, like one of the best college careers of all time.
Well, his numbers
It's
are
stupid.
silly.
It's stupid.
Silly.
I'm going to, if you guys post this, I'm going to send this next part I say to my college roommate. He's a Browns fan, and I said, when they drafted Baker, I texted him something. I was like, congrats on your quarterback for the next decade. Because I thought he was a franchise quarterback coming in, and I'm still not wrong. Because I think
true.
how he's reinvented himself in Tampa Bay. There was a bad stretch in Cleveland.
He's probably top. He's top 7-8 in the league.
Right, and he beat the Steelers Browns in a playoff game. So I was like, yeah, he did more for that franchise than anybody else has in the last 25 years. And look at him at Tampa Bay. Like, yeah, they've made the playoffs, and they have some limitations, but I just like his way. And I think you just said it that it's almost because he didn't win a national title. He was always in the Heisman mix. Those Oklahoma teams were very good. Man, how much different is college football if they beat Georgia in that crazy Rose Bowl they played?
Also, how much of that were we putting on Baker Mayfield, not the defense? Like, let's be honest here.
I still think they should have gone for it on fourth down when they gave it back to Georgia. But anyway, but let me ask you something. I want to go to the Big 12 because I feel safe saying dark horse, but when the win total is anywhere from 4.5 to 8.5 from every team in the league, I guess everybody's a candidate. But if I just give you these two teams on paper, and he had one of the greatest, strangest answers even for Dave Aranda. If I give you – did you hear the Wolf of Wall Street?
Yes.
If I give you Texas Tech and Baylor, who do you like at the end of the day?
Man, can you ask me after the Baylor-Auburn game so I can
That's funny you say that about Auburn because for all as off malign as their head coach has been, they're actually going to be a thorn in a lot of SEC team sides this year, in my opinion, with their top-end talent. They're not deep.
Yeah.
But that starting 22 is legit.
Yeah. Keldrick Falk and then Jackson Arnold. If they can protect Jackson Arnold, happen. Dave Aranda, Baylor. I think if they can beat Auburn, I do think with the way Sawyer Robertson played at the end of the season, they could be very good. I'd probably take Texas Tech based on the schedule a little more. And I think, they've obviously poured a lot of money into the program. Baron Morton doesn't make a lot of mistakes either. The Big 12 is going to be so interesting because I think the stat was Shedeur Sanders is gone. He led the conference in passing yards last season. The next 10 guys are back.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that could be, hey, 1 week Josh Hoover and TCU might get Robertson. And then the next week Rocco Beck might get somebody. And Avery Johnson and Rocco Beck right out of the go. And
then Ireland. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do think there could be more parity in that league. A lot of one-score games like they had last year. Super exciting, but it probably means just one playoff team.
If you had to bet, would you bet that one playoff team is Arizona State again?
Yeah. I picked them to win the Big 12. I trust Sam Levitt. Now, losing Cam Scatterbo, and the more I look at X and you see what Cam is doing at the Giants camp, they're going to miss him.
This guy's pretty good. Mm-hmm. That guy's really good.
I think he might be their lead back.
Yeah.
Which is wild how they get him at the value they get him. So, but yeah, I think with Jordan Tyson back, they're going to score. Kenny Dillingham's certainly done a nice job there, but it's wide open. Like if you guys say, no, you're wrong, it's going to be Kansas State, or no, you're wrong, it's going to be Baylor or Iowa State, or, all the way down. If somebody said, hey, Oklahoma State will bounce back and have a good year, I can't say no. That's how much parity is in that conference.
Of the contenders that have good running backs coming back, I guess I would say better than good. Who needs better quarterback play? Notre Dame Who do you think I'm going to say?
I don't know.
Notre Dame or Florida State?
Probably Florida State, because I think Notre Dame can get. They showed last year. Riley Leonard was inconsistent in the passing game. There's no doubt. He was actually really good in the last 2 playoff games. But when you have Jeremiah Love, Darian Price, and a dominant offensive line, it'd be all right. Tommy Castellanos at ACC media kickoff. I did like that he kind of stood by his Alabama comments and didn't just back down. And here's one thing: it's pet peeve. If he's out on a summer workout with Isaiah Horton and he's talking trash about the Alabama-Florida State game, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
They're working out together. Guys talk. Are we not allowed to talk trash because the camera was on? 2, but he did back that up again when an interview was on 3. Anyway, I just think there's a little more pressure given. I wrote this stat last week. Florida State quarterbacks had 11 touchdown passes, 13 interceptions last year. They need him to be much better than what they had under center last year.
Bill, do you think, because I'm fascinated by, full disclosure, I like Florida State kind of on the side here, but I'm fascinated by the quarterback situation there because I can't figure out if Tommy Castellanos is the guy that they wanted with Gus Malzahn or if that's just the guy they could get.
A little bit of both. And I think Gus Malzahn, you bring that up. I mean, we know they're going to be fast. We know they're going to run a lot of plays. We know they're going to run the football probably pretty well.
Yeah.
But there'll be inconsistency there. So with Castellanos, you got to sell that. I thought at the last week, Mike Norvell was probably as energetic a coach as you could possibly have. And he used the word desperate a lot. And I do think they're in some sort of desperation. They cannot be 2-10 again. They cannot be. I don't think they can be 5-7 or 4-8. And the ACC needs them. We've got a piece coming about the ACC today. They've got Clemson. You know what that conference needs if they want to, really make a push. They need Florida State and Miami to get their act together collectively. They need Miami and Florida State to be regular playoff teams. They need Miami and Florida State that game to matter like it did when I was in. I mean, I told you guys the story. Last year, flipping through and come across that game, I forgot it was on.
Yeah.
You imagine saying that in 1997?
Yeah.
That you forgot that Florida State Miami was on?
That's a good point. We went back. Remember, I think the last meaningful one they played was 17 or 18.
Yeah, there was a one-off.
It's been a while.
One-off that the year that I think Rick was there, and they were really good at Miami. But before that, it was almost a decade before.
So,
and as an outsider, real quick, when you grew up in Ohio, TV was different then. There were a couple games you crowded in the living room with your buddies. One, when they played it, when I was younger, and not to bring Nebraska, Colorado was a big deal here. You watched that, tuned in, you knew it was going to be awesome football. Florida State, Miami was that game. UCLA, USC to some extent, other than I'd always said that always followed Ohio State, Michigan, and you got really upset because you saw the sun and you were like, "What are they?" You were jealous of the warm weather at that point.
Of the quarterbacks that get the but, and Bielema dropped a fantastic stat. I didn't know whether to be like, "Yeah, that makes sense," or what in the world, but. The only team in Power 4 football that's returning in threes, a 3-year defensive coordinator, a 3-year offensive coordinator, and a 3-year starter at quarterback. I was like, holy smokes. But of the but quarterbacks, I put them in the but because that typically is what their critics say. Yeah, but. Mm-hmm. And I give you Altmaier, Aller, and Jennings at SMU. Can you separate those quarterbacks outside of the scheme, or was the first response you're going to give to me scheme dependent on what you think about these quarterbacks?
So I'll go down Luke Altmaier, 3rd-year starter. I think he is who he is. He does a good job with them, what they do at Illinois, and to lead them to 10 wins. And can he take them to the playoff? That's the big question. I don't think it's a but. I just think it's a question. Drew Aller, we can't use receivers as an excuse.
His own
if he's
fan base gives him but.
Yeah, they do. And he's got a great track record. He's done great, and I think he's an awesome kid. But if you're a first-round NFL talent, the receivers can only matter so much. You know what I mean? So it's on him. The pressure's there. Jennings is interesting to me because his stock's probably down based on being overwhelmed and making a couple bad decisions against Penn State, who was much better. They weren't going to Penn State and winning that game. And I think SMU's sitting on something there where
Lashley acts like it, doesn't he?
He does. And I think they've got the backing and the want to. And unlike the 80s, they can do all this legal stuff. So I
all
think
above board.
That's going to make – they're going to be a really interesting team. So I think Kevin Jennings is probably the least dependent on the scheme, and I think he'll be fine this year in year 2 with SMU.
That's our guy, Bill Bender, Sporting News, covering college football. Bill, great stuff as always. We'll talk to you soon.
I can't wait, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, Bill.